Have you ever felt so alone that you started questioning everything? Your purpose, your worth, even God's presence? It's that kind of loneliness that sits heavy in your heart, making you wonder if you've been forgotten. You pray, but it feels like your prayers are bouncing off the walls. You reach out to people, but somehow no one really understands what you're going through. And in the silence, a question lingers. Why would God allow this? Why does He want me to be alone? Welcome to Endless Love of God, a place of prayers and divine wisdom from Scripture to guide and protect your soul. If you've been feeling lost, uncertain, or abandoned, know that you are not here by accident. God has led you to this message for a reason. Today, we are going to dive deep into something that many people experience but rarely understand: seasons of solitude. Loneliness is one of the hardest things to endure. But what if I told you that your solitude has a purpose? What if this season of isolation isn't meant to break you, but to build you? You see, God doesn't allow anything in our lives without a reason. When He removes people, closes doors, or puts us in a place where we feel utterly alone, it's never without divine intention. He is not punishing you, He is preparing you. In this video, we'll uncover 5 powerful reasons why God wants you to be alone. We'll look at how He uses solitude to strengthen your relationship with Him, prepare you for your calling, remove unhealthy attachments, teach you that He alone is enough, and set you apart for something greater. Each of these reasons carries a deeper lesson that will shift your perspective on loneliness and help you embrace what God is doing in your life. But the most special part of this message comes at the very end, where we will share a truth that can transform how you experience this season. If you've ever struggled with loneliness, I encourage you to stay with us until the last moment. You won't want to miss what's coming. So take a deep breath. Open your heart, because what you're about to hear isn't just another message. It's God speaking directly to you. Let's begin. Reason 1, to strengthen your relationship with God. Think about this. When was the last time you were truly alone with God? No distractions, no noise, no endless scrolling through your phone, just you and Him? It's easy to go through life surrounded by people, constantly moving from one thing to the next, but never really stopping to sit in God's presence. And sometimes He has to take extreme measures to get our attention. That's why He allows seasons of solitude, not to punish you, but to draw you closer to Him. When everything else is stripped away, when the people you depended on are no longer there, when the things that once gave you comfort feel empty, it forces you to look to the only one who never leaves, God. Think about Jesus. Even He, the Son of God, took time to be alone with the Father. He would step away from the crowds, from His disciples, from everything, just to pray. If Jesus needed solitude to connect with God, how much more do we? Maybe this is exactly what God is doing in your life right now. Maybe He's removing distractions so that you can finally hear His voice. Maybe He's allowing this loneliness so you can experience His presence in a way you never have before. You see, there are some things about God you will only understand when you're alone with Him. His peace, His comfort, His whispers, they become clearer when the noise of the world fades away. So instead of fighting this season, lean into it. Use this time to pray more, to read His Word, to truly seek Him, because the moment you realize that God is enough, loneliness loses its power over you. Reason 2, to prepare you for your calling. You might not see it right now, but this season of solitude is preparing you for something bigger. God never wastes anything, not even your loneliness. Look at the people in the Bible. Moses spent 40 years in the wilderness before God called him to lead Israel. Joseph was thrown into a pit, sold into slavery, and left in prison before he became a ruler in Egypt. Paul spent years alone in the desert before stepping into his ministry. And even Jesus spent 40 days in the wilderness before He began His public mission. What do all these people have in common? God separated them before He elevated them. And that's exactly what He's doing with you. Sometimes we think we're ready for what God has planned for us, but we're not. There are things He needs to refine in us first. Maybe He's teaching you patience. Maybe He's strengthening your faith. Maybe He's building your character so that when He does open the right doors, you'll be ready to walk through them. It's in solitude that God reveals things to you about yourself, your strengths, your weaknesses, your purpose. When you're constantly surrounded by people, it's easy to get lost in the noise. But when you're alone, God begins to show you who you really are and who He's calling you to be. So instead of feeling forgotten, start seeing this season for what it truly is: preparation. Because when God finally says, now is the time, you won't just step into your calling, you'll step into it ready. Reason 3, to remove unhealthy attachments. Let's be honest, sometimes we hold on to people and things that are not good for us. We cling to relationships that drain us, friendships that pull us away from God, or even habits that keep us stuck in the same place. And because we don't want to let go, sometimes God has to step in and do it for us. That's why He allows certain people to walk away. That's why He closes certain doors. Not because He wants to hurt you, but because He knows what's best for you. If you've ever prayed, God, remove anything that's not meant for me, don't be surprised when people start disappearing. The truth is, we don't always see the full picture. We think we need that relationship, that friendship, that job, that opportunity. But God sees what we can't. He sees the heart, the motives, the things hidden behind the smiles and the sweet words. He knows when something or someone is keeping us from our full potential. And because He loves us, He removes them. I know it's painful. I know it feels like rejection. But what if I told you that God isn't taking something from you? He's making room for something better. You see, when we hold on to the wrong things, we can't receive the right things. If your hands are full of what's not meant for you, how will you have room for what is? Proverbs 3:5-6 says, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways submit to Him, and He will make your path straight." That means you won't always understand why things happen the way they do. You won't always see the reason in the moment. But if you trust God, you can be sure that every removal, every closed door, every season of solitude is leading you closer to the life He has planned for you. So instead of grieving what's lost, start preparing for what's coming. Because when God takes something away, it's only to give you something greater. Reason 4, to teach you that God is enough. It's easy to say, God is all I need when life is good, when you're surrounded by friends, when you have support and love from people around you. But what happens when all of that is stripped away? When the calls stop coming, when the invitations dry up, when you feel like no one understands what you're going through? That's when you truly learn if God is enough for you. You see, sometimes we depend on people more than we depend on God. We look to others for validation, for love, for comfort, for security. But people are human. They can fail you, they can leave, they can change. God, on the other hand, never does. He is the same yesterday, today, and forever. Maybe this season of solitude is God teaching you that He is your source. Not people, not relationships, not your job, Him. Paul understood this. In Philippians 4:12-13, he said, "I know what it is to be in need, and I know what it is to have plenty. I have learned the secret of being content in any and every situation, whether well-fed or hungry, whether living in plenty or in want. I can do all this through Him who gives me strength." Did you catch that? Paul had to learn contentment. It didn't come naturally. He had to go through seasons of struggle, of loneliness, of not having what he thought he needed, only to realize that the only thing he truly needed was God. And that's what God is teaching you right now. He's teaching you that your joy, your peace, your identity, your purpose, they don't come from people. They don't come from relationships. They come from Him alone. Once you truly understand that, once you reach the point where you can say, even if I have no one, even if everything is taken from me, I still have God, and that's enough, then loneliness loses its power over you. Because you will never feel alone when you know that God is with you. So don't resist this season. Embrace it. Because it's in this solitude that you will find the greatest revelation of all. God is and always will be enough. Reason 5, to set you apart for something greater. Have you ever considered that your loneliness might be a sign that God is setting you apart? That He is pulling you away from the crowd because He has something greater for you? It's easy to feel like isolation means rejection, but what if it actually means preparation? Look at the people God used in the Bible. He always set them apart before He elevated them. David was anointed as king, but before he ever sat on the throne, he spent years alone in the fields tending sheep. Joseph had a dream of greatness, but before he ruled Egypt, he was thrown into a pit, sold into slavery, and left in a prison cell. Jesus himself spent 40 days alone in the wilderness before he began his ministry. You see, before God takes you higher, he often takes you away. He separates you, not to hurt you, but to prepare you for what's coming. Because when God has a great calling on your life, you can't move the way everyone else moves. You can't do what everyone else is doing. You can't surround yourself with just anyone. God is setting you apart because he is calling you to something greater. And let's be real, being set apart doesn't always feel good. It can feel lonely, confusing, and even painful. You might look around and wonder, why is everyone else moving ahead while I feel stuck? Why does it seem like doors are opening for others, but not for me? But what if God is keeping you hidden for a reason? What if he is working on you in private before he reveals you in public? A strong foundation takes time to build, and God is more interested in who you are becoming than how fast you get there. He doesn't want to elevate you before you're ready, because what good is a blessing if you don't have the strength to carry it? Isaiah 40 verse 31 says, "But those who wait on the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings like eagles. They shall run and not be weary. They shall walk and not faint." That means your waiting, your loneliness, your season of isolation, it's not wasted. It's a time of strengthening. So instead of asking God, why am I alone? Start asking God, what are you preparing me for? Because when the time is right, when your character is refined, when your faith is strong enough to sustain the calling, God will open the doors. And you won't just walk through them, you'll soar. Conclusion: embracing God's plan for your solitude. I know loneliness can be painful. I know it can feel like you've been forgotten, like your prayers are going unheard. But I need you to hear this. You are not alone. You have never been alone, and you will never be alone. This season of solitude is not a punishment, it's a setup. God is doing something in you that you may not understand right now, but one day, you will look back and see that everything had a purpose. He is strengthening you. He is preparing you. He is removing what no longer serves you. He is teaching you that he alone is enough, and he is setting you apart for something greater. It may not feel like it, but this loneliness is actually a gift, because in this quiet, in this stillness, you are being drawn into a deeper, more intimate relationship with God. He is speaking, he is guiding, and he is shaping you into the person he created you to be. So don't despise this season. Don't fight it. Embrace it. Use this time to seek God like never before, to pray, to grow, to prepare. Because when this season ends, and it will end, you will step into the plans God has for you with a strength and a faith that could have only been built in solitude. And when that happens, when you finally see why God allowed you to be alone, you'll realize that you were never really alone at all. If this message spoke to you, don't let it end here. Subscribe to Endless Love of God for more faith-filled messages, and turn on notifications so you never miss a word of encouragement. Like this video, share it with someone who needs it, and drop a comment below. Let us know how God is working in your life. You are never alone. Keep trusting him, and remember, his love for you is endless. God bless you.